What is one food that is common around most cuisines around the world? Chilies, but you already knew that based on the title of this video, unless you live in Denmark, as they only really got chili peppers well after the 1960s, which is almost 17 million years after they started growing in Bolivia. These wild chilies emerged from the lowland jungles, but were not spicy yet. Chili peppers have a long history, like really long history. Their irresistible heat doesn't start to develop though until 3 years after their jungle conception. Between 10 and 6 million years ago, the Andes Mountains were formed, they grew, forcing the wild chili pepper to adapt as its climate changed. Lower temperatures and drier conditions created the frost-resilient wild chili, which we believe to be the origin of all chili peppers. Enter the chiltepin, or Capsicum annunum glabrisculum. The name chiltepin is believed to be of Aztec origin. This wild chili is more like a berry, small, round, and incredibly hot. These little berries clock in at 50,000 to 100,000 Scoville, or about 13 times hotter than a jalapeno. They're less than a centimeter in diameter and just larger than a peppercorn, which will be important later. These small round peppers can be red or green and grow in a bush that's typically 4 feet tall, but have reached, if left alone, up to 10 feet. The chiltepin, or bird pepper, is classified as a semi-domesticated. It was wild, then domesticated, but then end up growing wild again as traders brought it out of South America, but we'll get to that. And we know these peppers were dispersed by birds who were unfazed by the heat of a chili pepper. New research suggests that the chili pepper wasn't hot in its origin. One of these wild species, or a mix, are believed to be the source in southern Brazil. A new theory suggests that before the Andes Mountains rose, they were dispersed by bats, who, unlike birds, have a major problem with chili peppers. Ask any gardener who has to deal with bats in their yard, and they use a chili pepper spray to keep them away. Bats could have dispersed the wild chilies, spreading them to the area which would become the Andes Mountains in Bolivia. As these mountains rose, the wild chili then developed its spiciness. While we believe the Annunum glabrisculum to be the mother of the bulk of chili peppers today, there are 3 wild species in its group that it can easily cross with: the Capsicum choquense and Capsicum galapagos. These 3 wild peppers collectively cover almost perfectly the region of southern United States to central Argentina, but these plants are absent in Brazil. This leads us to believe that either the wild native berries around southern Bolivia to northern Argentina transformed as the Andes developed, or the spiceless peppers from Brazil is the correct theory. It's possible that Capsicum glabrisculum was developed with the help of its friends, Capsicum choquense, a wild pepper from northern Argentina that produces tiny fruit. Its other friend, Capsicum galapagonense, a wild chili that comes from the Galapagos Islands, drinks water by absorbing moisture from foggy weather through its leaves, and it doesn't absorb water very well through its roots. For this reason, it doesn't survive well in areas that aren't super foggy, and it's a really hard plant to grow. So moving forward, something happened between 1 and 10 million years ago with these 3 wild chilies and potentially others. Now, some scientists believe that one of the wild chilies with 26 chromosomes, it's a different group, is the true wild origin. Millions of years later, we have 5 cultivated species of peppers. There are 26 known wild chili pepper species and 5 domesticated species: Annunum, pubescens, crupescens, chinense, and bacotum. Coming from before the Incan Empire in Peru, and likely the first domesticated species, the pubescens are the most cold-hardy peppers despite growing near the equator. The reason for this is they are found high up in the Andes Mountains. If left alone, these pepper plants can get so tall they're referred to as pepper trees. Manzano and locoto are 2 types. Bacotum is one that really hasn't made it out of South America at scale. These peppers come with the prefix ají, such as ají amarillo, ají omnicolor, and ají limo. They often have a common unique attribute of delivering fruit and citrus flavors with a strong fragrance. We won't be diving deeper on these today, but I do have a video on the Mad Hatter pepper, a Capsicum bacatum variety that is the best pepper I've ever tasted. Chinense is often believed to come from China, but the wild variant of the Chinense comes from the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico and the Caribbean. These peppers are very hot and often smoky, which include habanero, ghost, Scotch bonnet, Carolina reaper, and the Trinidad scorpion. Frutescens is a close relative of the Chinense and Anunum. This family has fewer varieties and often smaller than the others. The frutescens is most well known for Tabasco, yes, the pepper, it's not just a sauce, as well as Thai peppers, African bird's eye, and the Malagueta pepper. Anunum has the most varieties, which is where we'll be diving in today on this video. Jalapeno, bell peppers, banana peppers, cayenne, serranos, shishito, poblano, and many more. The Latin name, Anunum, meaning annual, is, well, wrong. When grown in temperate climates, they will survive one season, but chili peppers will continue to live and grow in places with no frost. The mother Anunum glabrisculum can endure frost and live for 30 years. Anunum, Chinense, and frutescens all have one wild relative. Anunum and frutescens were created first, with Chinense being created from frutescens. At least that's what we're thinking today. Capsicum eximium, another wild chili that is poorly known, is likely the wild relative of the pubescens species. Capsicum baccatum, variant Baccatum, is the wild relative of the Baccatum species, which is a small plant that resembles the lemon drop pepper, one I grew here 2 years ago, which is fantastic. So we've established 5 cultivated species. When did the first cultivated chili peppers show up? They date back 9,000 years when chili pepper seeds were found in the Guitario caves in Peru. Also, 8,500 years ago, an archaeological site in Peru showed remains of old habanero peppers. Most scholars agree that the evidence we have of domesticated Capsicum anunum from Mexico and northern Central America is 6,000 years old. Now, moving forward 5,000 years to the year 1200 to 1450, we now have chilies in northwestern Mexico and southwestern America. One of the creations to come from the domestication of the chili, and likely a child of the chiltepine, the semi-domesticated chili, is the Paquin chili. This chili is often mistaken for the chiltepine, but they are very much two different chilies. The Paquin is native to Mexico, and as you can see, after their traits were selected from the mother chili and bred to embrace these traits, you end up with a chili that is no longer round like a berry, but elongated. This chili also has half as much heat as the chiltepine at 40,000 to 60,000 Scoville. Now, it was at this point the chili was about to go global. Christopher Columbus, remember that guy? He landed in the New World in 1492 while looking for a spice trade route. What he had found when his boat hit the shores of the Caribbean is a new food, chili peppers. Locals offered him a taste, to which he was shocked and found it unusual, the burn and heat the pepper offered. The closest thing he could relate it to is the burn of black pepper, thus he called this new fruit pepper, which comes from black pepper's scientific name, Piper nigrum. What Columbus was introduced to was ají peppers, or members of the Capsicum baccatum. These include many of the ají peppers like ají amarillo, ají pineapple, and ají fantasy, as well as one I'm quite fond of, ají limo, or the lemon drop pepper. Columbus was impressed with this new discovery and brought chili peppers back to Spain. Portuguese traders took these seeds and started promoting these peppers as they knew how valuable black pepper was for its spiciness. It wasn't much longer before chili peppers made its way to India by the 15th century. Now, if we jump back to South America, let's take a look at how these moved north to New Mexico. Several theories exist. Some scientists believe Juan de Unate, this grizzled Spanish conquistador, come on, who doesn't like saying conquistador, brought the chili pepper north in 1598 to New Mexico when King Philip II sent him there to colonize the region. It is said once the Spanish implemented their style of cultivation, chili populations exploded. Others believe chili came from New Mexico through trade. Indigenous Toltec people occupying the region from Mexico City to Honduras came north to trade with the Pueblo people native to New Mexico. The indigenous Pueblo people developed and locally adapted the introduced chili pepper. They would go on to create their own strains. Acoma Pueblo, a mild with lightly flavorful pungency, Isleta Pueblo, a sweet fruity chili, Zia Pueblo, a bitter-sweet chili, Nambe Pueblo, which means rounded earth. This pepper comes from the Santa Fe County, which is spicy, sweet, and smoky. Chimeo, another landrace plant that had been around for centuries. This long, curved chili is smoky, medium spicy, and earthy tasting. The native Pueblo chili was first grown throughout Santa Fe de Nuevo Mexico, translated to English is New Mexico. At this point, not only do we have numerous native chilies being developed by the indigenous Pueblo people, chilies were being domesticated all across Central America and South America, with varieties like the cayenne pepper coming from French Guiana and the serrano chili pepper, which is native to the mountainous regions of northern Puebla and Hidalgo in Mexico. Wild chilies Christopher Columbus and the Spanish brought back started yielding new varieties across Europe, like the banana pepper created in Hungary. Fast forward almost 300 years to 1894, horticulturist Dr. Fabian Garcia and his students at what is now the New Mexico State University took native peppers that the Pueblo people were growing and developed, wait for it, the New Mexico chili. Were you expecting another name? Well, it was actually called New Mexico number 9. They developed multiple different chilies. Number 9 was the last one standing, which got the name New Mexican chili or Hatch chili. This is the original Hatch chili, or one that was developed to be more mild for Anglo settlers. Now, chilies would historically vary drastically with their yield and flavor. Dr. Garcia sought out to create new chilies with piquancy that farmers could rely on, selecting 14 chili ascensions that Hispanic gardeners grew around Las Cruces, just north of the Mexican border. He selected Colorado, Negro, and Pasilla peppers to create what would become the New Mexican number 9. The goal was to not only create milder chilies for settlers, but to create smoother, thicker, larger, shoulderless chilies perfect for canning. Dr. Garcia ended up with one winning pepper after 9 years of work, the New Mexico number 9, which was released in 1913. What Dr. Garcia had created was essentially a new chili pod type, which is known as Hatch chilies today. Number 9 is the original standardized variety, but many more would be created at New Mexico State University. The New Mexican chili, or Hatch chili, is popular today in southwestern United States, in Mexican, Sonoran, Arizonan, and New Mexican cuisine. Considered one of New Mexico's state vegetables, even though it's a fruit, it is referenced in the state question, green or red. Now, obviously you want to pick red as it'd be higher in nutrients and sweetness and is more time to ripen on the plant, but that's just my 2 cents. Now, what about that name, Hatch? Hatch chili? Well, this is an important crop to New Mexico's economy. It was given this name as it's grown in the Hatch Valley around Hatch, New Mexico. Hatch chili is subtly sweet and smoky with mild to medium heat. For reference, a jalapeno maxes out at 8,000 Scoville or heat units. The Hatch chilies max out at 5,000 Scoville. This heat depends on the location that it's grown. As this chili ripens, it gains a more earthy taste that will change from forward heat to back end heat. They're slightly pungent like an onion or garlic. We'll cap off this storyline with what came after the New Mexican chili, a variety, one of many created, that was created by Emilio Ortega. Yes, the same as the food company. Emilio had a love of food he got from his mother. He moved to New Mexico in 1890, where he became fascinated by chili peppers. Returning home to Ventura, California 4 years later, he grew the New Mexican chilies in his family garden, developing a milder version of the Hatch chili, which would later be named after the city of Anaheim. The original Hatch chili Dr. Garcia developed had a Scoville of upwards of 5,000. Emilio's creation, the Anaheim pepper, would only max out at 2,500. Anaheim peppers have flesh that is twice as thick, they both have a similar taste, but Hatch chilies can be twice as hot. When traveling around New Mexico, often any of the New Mexican chilies, whether they be the original Hatch or any of the creations that came from it, might be labeled simply as New Mexican chili. If we look at this list of New Mexican chili varieties, we'll see this one, the Joe E. Parker, a variety of the Anaheim pepper, which I happen to grow this year. It was developed in 1990 with very low heat, less than half of that of an Anaheim pepper. Anaheim peppers are recognized as being green, but they actually turn red if you let them ripen, which makes them hotter, so it shouldn't come as a surprise to see the Joe E. Parker pepper being red. Now, this one partially dried out on me as I have hundreds of things growing around here, but if you're a foodie who likes taste test videos, I have an entire channel that does that, so I'll link up the Joe E. Parker pepper at the end. Now, to round this out, today there's a pepper called Pueblo chili, but this isn't the one grown by the indigenous Pueblo people hundreds of years ago. Instead, this pepper is also known as Mirasol chili or Mirasol Pueblo chili. Mirasol is a pepper pod, a body type of species of its own, kind of like poblano or cayenne. It has its own varieties, but extra confusion comes in two ways. First, remember the hatch chili? It has all those varieties. One of them is called Mirasol. Now, not all, but most of the hatch varieties come with the prefix New Mex or New Mexican, so New Mex Mirasol. But this pepper isn't the same as the Mirasol pepper. The New Mex Mirasol was developed, you're not going to believe this, for the primary intent not to be eaten, but to be made into chili wreaths. Chili wreaths are sold to tourists in southwestern United States. So that's all the confusion, right? No, the Mirasol pepper, the one people eat, when you dry it, it gets a new name, Guajillo pepper, which is right there in its scientific name. The name Mirasol is Spanish for looking at the sun as these peppers grow upright. Originating almost 17 million years ago, today we have over 50,000 cultivars or varieties of chilies. It's amazing where the chili pepper has come from its humble beginnings, as they're eaten by 1/4 of the Earth's population daily. Chili peppers have transformed Asian cuisine, going from non-existent at one point to today they're completely integrated across all Asian cuisines. But that isn't the only place they've gone. At the end of 2021, like right now, chili peppers are being grown in space. The New Mex Española, an improved pepper of the hatch variety, was selected for its fast growing time and ability to grow at higher elevation with less oxygen. A handy adaptation in space, where it's being grown on the International Space Station. I didn't expect this rabbit hole that is the chili pepper to be so deep. We only really scratched the surface of the Anaheim species. Tell me what food you'd like to see next, maybe more chilies, and thanks for watching.